Hi everyone. Thank you for stopping by to Yarn, Needles, and Life. My name is Deborah and I live in Florida. So I'm coming to you from the hot, humid, sunshine state. It is September the 29th. It is Saturday evening, dark time. I don't have my clock with me right here, so I'm not exactly sure what time it is. This is take two. Just to let you know, I do this on my little cheap tablet, and I don't have, that I'm aware of, any editing software on this tablet, and I'm not sure that I would know how to do the cut and splice things. So, what you see is what you get. I realized when I was viewing the first video that I just completed, I do view them before I upload them, that for some reason I was talking to you all, but you couldn't see me. All you could see is one of my shoulders, and of course my bag back here from Joann's that says "Knit Happens." And it does. It happens a lot in this room. I think I'm probably rarely not ever not knitting. I have yarn with me and needles with me everywhere I go. I'm a former smoker of 30 plus years, and I gave up the habit. And they say that people who have addictions, when they get off their addiction to one thing, they pick up something else. Um, a lot of times with people that are addicted to drugs or user of drugs, they or actually that's wrong. The ones who are alcoholics, these are the ones that I know. When they quit drinking, they start smoking a lot, drinking, consuming a whole lot of coffee. Okay, so I quit smoking, and I didn't want to start consuming a lot of food. And with smoking, it's a hand thing. I'm not sure how many smokers realize that, but it's actually a hand and a mouth fixation type of thing. And I know that sounds weird, but I did some reading on it, and that's how they described it. And I thought, yes, it is. It's having something in your hand all the time, doing something with your hand, and of course, your hand's always going to your mouth. So, um, if you don't smoke, then you pick up the fork, and it becomes a fork and mouth thing with food on it, and the scales go up, 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 up. And I didn't want to have that to deal with, because I have enough issues with weight to begin with, and I didn't want to add to it. So I picked up knitting when I was a little girl. My mother and my grandmother taught me the basic knit and purl stitches, and of course the basic stitches of crocheting, how to make a chain, how to chain one, chain two, single crochet, double crochet, and triple crochet. Problem was, they never taught me anything more than that. But at the age of 45, I discovered I had heart problems and had to have some procedures done. And then 10 years later, at the age of 54, while I was sitting at my office desk at work, I had a heart attack. So, I had quit smoking one time before, the 10 years prior to the age of 54, when I had my first go around with my heart. And then some issues came up in my life, and I reverted back to smoking, which was, I know, stupid. Okay, you don't need to tell me, I'm very aware. But anyhow, when the heart attack came around, and I ended up in the hospital having a triple bypass at the age of 54, and I was in seriously serious dire condition with my heart. It was smoke or die, and I decided I'm not ready to die. I got things I want to do. This is a no-brainer. I'm going to quit smoking. And I just went on, well, took me a while to recuperate from the triple bypass, and then 5 weeks later I had to have another bypass because I had 100% blockage in my abdominal aorta that goes to your legs and feet. That, that's where the blood travels through. I had a 100% blockage there, so I had to go back in and have what they call an abdominal aortic bifemoral bypass, so that I didn't end up losing my legs and feet. So um, the recovery was a long time, and to be honest with you, I went for so long with having these issues without knowing it. I knew something was wrong, but I had no idea that it was heart related, that a lot of damage was done before the big blow came. So recuperating was a very long process, and things with me have changed a lot physically. So I'm limited in a lot of things that I used to do, I can't do anymore. So I knit, okay? And wherever I go, my doctor's appointments, or even if I just, finally break down and go to the grocery store to pick up something to eat, I always have my knitting with me, because the one time that I didn't, I came out of the store and I had a flat tire, and I had to, wait around for 2 hours for somebody to come help me out, and I was sitting there and I couldn't knit, and I'm like, I could have knocked out a lot of stitches in 2 hours time, and I'm not smoking anymore, so I was fidgety. So I'm rarely never not knitting, and I rarely is it that I don't have a knitting item with me. So today, now that we're getting over that hump, I decided that I wanted to knit socks, and I did a previous video about my sock knitting escapades and how it was just took forever for me to grasp the whole sock knitting thing. I'd get so far and then I'd get stumped at the gusset, and I'd end up being frustrated and ripping it all back out. And this went back into for like 6 months, until I finally had my aha moment. And when I had my aha moment, that was great. This is what I will say to those of you who want to knit socks and have not done it yet. I started on double point needles. I find that a shorter double point needle, when you knit in the round with them, and that's what people use typically when they knit a sock, cuff down from the cuff down this way, you start up here, that if you have a shorter needle, like maybe a 6-inch needle to be using in length, that they're not so fiddly or floppy. Most of your DPNs are longer, and they're 8 inches or 10 inches, whatever, and you've got all this needle in the way of a small amount of stitches that you have divided onto 3 needles or 4 needles. I prefer to use 4 needles and the 5th one to knit off the stitches. So sock needles typically DPNs come with 5 needles. Every now and then some manufacturers will do 6, which is really great. But between the length of the needles, and I would recommend a wooden or a bamboo needle, because they tend to grip the yarn, whereas your metal or aluminum needles, they're so slick, they just slide right through the yarn, and I would find myself constantly, my needle's on the floor. I just, I've got live stitches sitting here and no needle on them, and I'm going like, oh, yeah, please don't let me lose these stitches and them unravel. So the wooden needles or bamboo needles helps avoid that problem. It doesn't totally eliminate it, but it does help lessen it. The other thing is I suggest that you go online and Google the anatomy of a sock. There's several of them out there. They're a picture, either hand-drawn or taken a photograph of, and it describes the different parts of the sock. And I know that you and I both know that when we go to the store to buy socks, all we want to know is, do the darn things fit? Yep, it's a sock. It looks like a sock. It fits like a sock. it's a sock. You know, we know where the toe is, we know where the heel is, and the leg and the foot. But there is an anatomy of a sock. And once you learn what the anatomy of the sock is, like, what do they mean when they talk about a gusset? Where is the gusset? Well, the gusset is this area right here above the arch in the heel of your foot. And it's in a V, like this. And it helps give room and stretch in the sock so that it's not too tight on the top of your foot that joins to your ankle. Okay, so that's a gusset. But I didn't know that. Why would I know that? Nobody knows that unless you're a foot doctor. And he probably doesn't even know that. Okay, we're talking socks, not foot doctors. So anyhow, that made a world of difference. That, and I would also suggest that you work on a baby booty or a little sock. Now, I'm blessed. I have 3 children whom are grown, and they've been married and they have children. So I have 8 grandchildren, and I have 3 great grandchildren. So I got some grandkids. These I made for my little great-grandson, Jaden, because he's the one that's around me the most. I don't get to see my other ones because they live in other states. So I promptly knit him up a pair of socks last winter, and I folded them up and stuck them somewhere and forgot about them. And I just found them this week. Jaden's foot is no longer this little. I mean, they really are little. They're actually 3 inches long from heel to toe. They're not very big. They probably look bigger on the screen than what they are. So anyhow, those were made out of some of my leftover sock yarn. It was Woolies sock yarn that I bought at Michael's craft store. So the reason why I suggest a small sock is because it takes less time to knit it, and which means you get end results quicker, which means you have less frustration because there's less stitches, and it knits up quicker. And if you do by some chance get frustrated and frog it all out or rip it out, whatever you want to call it, it's not like you've got 6,000 stitches knitted and you're ripping them all out and you're going, oh God. Okay. It's just a few, it's not 6,000. So anyhow, that's just my tip. You know, little shorty needles, and they are out there. If you can't find them in the stores, you can order them online from, let's see, I bought some from knitpicks.com. They had some short ones, and they're only like this long, and they're double pointed, and they're wooden, and they're just fabulous. I really like them because the yarn really does stay on the needle very well, so they're not slipping and sliding around, and it's really nice. The other thing is I've gotten to the point now that I wanted to learn how to knit my socks toe up, and I was just fascinated with it. It was like, okay, I got to try this. And they had Judy's Magic Cast On, and you knit them with a circular needle, and I'm like, okay, I can do this. Well, I found YouTube. For years, I didn't know anything about YouTube. When I was beginning my sock knitting escapades, I didn't know that YouTube existed, okay? It's not that it's been that long ago. It's just that I didn't know that much about the internet and what was out there and available. So anyhow, I found YouTube, and I hear about this Judy's Magic Cast On and how you can knit socks from the toe up on circular needles on a, circular needle. Needles, tips, cord, okay? And You cast on your toe stitches on these two at the same time. Okay, let me say, I watched video after video after video after video on how to cast on for Judy's magic loop to knit socks, toe up, and to cast on. I said dirty words. It made me say dirty words. I was frustrated. It was not pretty. I was ready to tear my hair out. Okay. When I finally got it was when I watched a video that was, and I can't remember who it is, and I am so sorry, but there's a lot of YouTube videos out there on sock knitting. Some people are just automatically better at showing and explaining the process of whatever it is you want to know about. That, you know, it's not being mean to say that. It's just the way it is. Some people have the right equipment set up. Like for me, to try to show it to you, I don't have the proper camera equipment at my disposal to be able to show you. All I can say is there's some knitters out there. One of them is she has a YouTube channel. It's called Very Pink. Her name is Stacy. She is fabulous. She's a fabulous knitter. She has her own little YouTube channel. She does this professionally. She is very, very good at showing you different knitting techniques, and she can show you the magic loop. She uses it a lot. The other thing is there is one that's called, her name is Lake Garrett. It's very, I always think of a Viking when I think of her name, and I can never get it right, and I'm sorry. But she does toe-up socks, and she came up with a heel for toe-up socks that I really like and I use all the time. And this is what I'll tell you to type into your Google search bar. Fleagle, Fleegle, heel, Heal, or Heel, I'm sorry. The Fleagle Heel. She does the magic loop, Judy's magic cast on for the toes, and she has a pattern, and it's free, and it's called the Fleagle Heel. I have started using that Fleagle Heel, and I can knit that in my sleep. I no longer have to have the pattern around, and I can modify it to fit my heel or anybody's heel with no problem at all. It's, once I got the grasp of it, it was like super simple, and honey, here we go. I was off and running with sock knitting. I have learned, here's another tip that I've learned, is, oh, her channel is Knit Freedom, is her channel with the Fleagle Heel. So give her a try. You can download her sock pattern for the Fleagle Heel and an entire vanilla sock pattern, basic socks. The other thing that I have found is, oh, it just totally skipped my mind. It left. It left as quick as it came. That's not good. That's one of my leftovers from open heart surgery and blockages and heart attacks and all that good stuff. Is, you know, you think it, if you don't spit it out right then and there, it's gone. And it may come back shortly, and it may not for a while. So at the moment, it's not coming back. So, oh, yes it is. Increases. We know, they tell us that on increases we can make one where you can you know, lift a stitch and put it on your other hook or your other needle and knit into the front or back of it. It makes a left leaning or right leaning increase. Okay, I quit doing that. I'm all about keep it super simple. Okay, I'm all about doing it the easy way, not the lazy way, just the easy way. And I have found that in a lot of cases, it's not visible at all. No one will ever know that you increased a stitch in that spot, um, because it looks like all your other stitches. Is what I do when I have to do an increase. Like, say you're doing an increase on, I don't know, anything. I'm going to use a sock, for instance, um, on the heel. You have to do an increase on the heel, and it says knit one, make one. Well, instead of lifting a prior stitch below or the bar that's in between the two stitches, I do a yarn over, and then I continue to knit back around. And when I get back to that where I made that yarn over at, instead of just knitting that yarn over like you normally would, I knit into the back side of that yarn over like I would be knitting through the back loop of a knitted stitch, and I just knit it off, and it's perfect. I have absolutely no hole there, and you cannot tell in my knitted item that I made an increased stitch there. So that's just a little something for anybody who wants to file that away in file 14, or if you choose file 13 for later date or never. But I thought that was pretty cool, and I use that a lot. In fact, that's pretty much my go-to make one. Instead of doing a knit front and back, I just do a yarn over, keep right on knitting, and when I come back around, I knit into the back loop of that yarn over stitch and knit it off, and it looks just like a regular knit stitch. You can't tell the difference. So anyhow, that's my tip for the day, and I hope that it helps some of you and that you find it to be useful. Let's see. I have some socks. I found out I'm a sockaholic. Took me forever to figure out how to do it, but once I started, I got on a roll, girls and boys. And I tell you what, I have a box, a really pretty box that I bought it. I think I bought it at Michael's, and it's like, I don't know, it's big. It's probably 16 by whatever, or 20 by whatever, and it's got a lid on it and a little magnetic closure, and it's cute. It's got the Eiffel Tower on it stuff, but I think I've got like 30 pairs of knitted socks in there. So trust me when I say I'm a sockaholic, I have a problem. I always have a sock cast on to a set of needles, and once I learned the magic loop cast on, and once I learned how to knit on circular needles, all my socks are knit from the toe up. I do a round toe, and I do a Fleagle heel, and I am good to go. I am rocking and rolling. It took me a little while to catch on, but when I did, buddy, there was no stopping me. Now, when we knit socks, we always have, typically, you have leftovers. So I've saved all my little balls of leftovers, and I thought, maybe I'll make a little mitered square memory blanket at some point in time. So I started knitting mitered squares, and they're teeny tiny. They're not very big, and they're just little squares, and they're cute. And I've got a bag full of them, but not enough to be able to start doing anything with them. So I still had sock yarn left. So I got those balls of sock yarn that were left over, and I decided I was going to make me some scrappy socks. Now, they're different brands of yarn. Some of it's Lion brand Sockies. Some of it's Premier sock yarn. Some of it's Patton's Croy. And I think one of them was Deborah Norval's yarn, and I absolutely hate her sock yarn. I'm sorry, Deborah, but if you would sit with me, you and I could have a good Q&A thing about your sock yarn. And this is just isn't me. I've heard other people say the same thing, so I don't feel too bad saying it. I'm not trying to be mean. It's just, it is what it is. And when I pay money for something, I expect for the item to work. And that particular ball of yarn, all it did was make me cuss and swear and be ugly. And once I finally got the sock knitted, I named it the Sock from Hell, and then I pulled it all out, and I wound it up in little balls and stuck them away in a corner, because that was, it was a sock from hell. It really was. It was horrible. It was horrible to try to knit. So anyhow, I took my scraps, and I made what I call, it's just a vanilla sock, and it's a shorty. It doesn't have a long leg. It just goes up above my ankles. But I took all my scrap yarns, and I started knitting. The toe is pink, and it's Lion brand Sockies. This one right above it, right there, that also is Lion brand Sockies, but it is in their ivory color. Now, I realize that it doesn't look ivory, and that's because it no longer is ivory, because I decided one day I was going to try to dye yarn. Let me tell you, girls and guys, it was the best fun I've had in a long time. Okay? I don't go anywhere and do anything. I buy groceries, and I, every now and then get to shop for yarn. And to dye yarn was just incredibly fun. I mean, it was right up there with, I don't know. I had fun anyhow. I had my best friend come over, and she and I got together and we dyed yarn. But anyhow, this yarn right here was an off-white. And I got food coloring. And I got a big pot. And I got vinegar. And I added 3 tablespoons of vinegar to I think the pot was probably 8 quarts of hot water. And then I got some food coloring, and I started adding a drop here and a drop there and this, that, and the other. And this is what I came out with. And it's actually a blue and a lavender. And it was very pretty when I did it. When it came out, I took it and I redid the skein. I didn't leave it in the skein in the ball. I did it out in a long round loop, and I secured this, the edges of it with some yarn, like you would get a hank of yarn. So I did that, and I mixed up the food coloring, and I started dipping my yarn in it and pulling it out, and dipping it a little farther in and pulling it out, because the dye color that I used was blue. I don't think I put any purple in it at all. Well, I couldn't have, because purple didn't come with it. It was just blue food coloring. But as you dip it, the fibers, and you have to do it with wool. It won't work with acrylic yarns. Trust me. People out there on YouTube says it'll work. It doesn't. Don't even bother thinking that it does. It does not. I've tried it. Been there, done it. Once was enough. I did it 3 times. It does not work. But anyhow, I dip dyed it, and I just kept dipping it in more and pulling it out, dipping it in further and pulling it out. And then I just put it all in there, and I let it sit. I let the water simmer. Now, I brought the water to a gentle boil, and then I started putting the yarn in. I did pre-wet my yarn, I believe. But anyhow, then I put the whole thing in there, and I let it sit until it absorbed all of the food coloring. And you know it has absorbed all of it when you can put a spoon in there and pull it up, and the water's clear. There's no more dye in there. So when I pulled it out, I had one whole half of it was this pretty purple, and the other half of it was this really pretty blue. And I took it and I rinsed it, and I washed it gently with some Dawn dish soap and rinsed it out after it had cooled. And I hung it up over the bathroom shower curtain rack to drip dry. And it took a couple days, of course, but it was so pretty. And I did several other skeins of wool yarn that I had bought. and I just had a lot of fun. And I was really tickled to see how it knit up. And I actually have a pair of socks totally knit with this, and it just self-stripes. I had no idea until I knit what it would look like, and it was fun. So anyhow, these are my scrappy socks. I do a round toe, as you can see. I don't do no pointy toe. And I have my Fleagle Heel that I was telling you about from Knit Freedom. And it's a shorty. And its mate, I just did the colors in the same categories up. And so that's my scrappy heels. They're a vanilla. There's nothing fancy about them other than the colors. And I've taken to where I like knitting the heel one color, the heel and cuff one color, the foot another color, and the toe a coordinating color as the heel and the cuff, or even putting a third coordinating color in there. It's really fun. These socks right here, I knit them out, and they're shorties as well. I still have to weave in the ends, but I bought this yarn at Michael's craft store. It's their loops and threads. It's their wool-like yarn. It's super fine. It's 693 yards, I believe it is, for $2.99. I held it double strand and knit them, and it was a lot of fun. They're buttery soft. They will be great for house socks. I don't think they would hold up to the wear and tear of putting them in a shoe and having a heel sliding back and to against them, the friction of it. I think they would wear out quickly, but they'd be very comfortable to keep your feet warm during the winter time. So that's one of them. Here is another sock that I made. This one, I came up with this on my own. I found a stitch pattern that I liked. It is also loops and threads. This toe is a little bit more square looking than it is round, but it's the same thing. And on my increases on my toes, when I'm doing toe up, I do that same yarn over, and then I go around, I knit around, and when I get back to that yarn over, I knit in the back loop of that yarn over on the back side of it and knit it. And therefore I don't have any problems with holes or anything. And then here's my Fleagle Heel again. So the nice thing about the Fleagle Heel is you can manipulate it to fit a wider heel or a narrower heel. So the heel is always fitting the person's foot that you're knitting for. And it's real simple to do. Once I learned the rounded toe, and it's called a recipe that I got off of Ravelry for free. It's Lynn Ashton seam free round toe up sock recipe. I know it's long, but it's the only one there on Ravelry, and I have adapted my toes of my socks to her recipe. I've changed her her rounded sock toe. Anyhow, I have played with it a little bit, and I've made it my own. So I have made some changes on it, and I'm real happy with the changes. But even her recipe, she calls it a recipe instead of a pattern, is very, very nice. It's very nice, and I can't imagine anybody having, not being happy with it. So here's another pair that I made. I do a lot of just the basic vanilla socks. I just round toe, Fleagle Heel, whatever. This is Patton's Croy sock yarn. It's 75% wool, 25% nylon. This stuff is durable. I can throw it in the wash machine, wash them on cold, and throw them in the dryer and dry them. Sometimes I put them in the dryer. Other times I don't put them in the dryer. Now, I have had one pair of these socks knit out of the Patton's Croy. And this is superwash wool, actually. It says superwash. And it says you can wash them dry. I did actually have one pair felt on me. Not badly, to where they're little tiny miniatures, but they're too snug for me to wear comfortably, so I don't wear them anymore. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I also have had one pair that I knitted that the yarn pilled terribly. It was crazy. But I haven't had it happen on all of them. So I don't know whether it was just that run of that yarn at that time when they manufactured it, because I've had more of them. That's usually the yarn that I buy to knit my socks with, and because it's readily available at Joann's and at Michael's, and I never had that problem before. Now, I will tell you this, for those of you who have not knit socks before, it takes 2 skeins or 2 balls of the Patton's sock yarn to make a pair of socks. There is not enough in one ball to make a pair of adult socks. You could get baby socks, you could get a small toddlers, you could get toddler socks out of one, but you can't get adult socks. Adult socks take typically anywhere from 400 up to 450 yards of yarn to do socks, and you need to have a nylon blend. And when I say nylon, if you make a pair of socks out of just cotton yarn, they're going to be a nightmare. Cotton does not hold its shape. The more you wear it, or the more it hangs, the more it loses its shape. It has no memory in it. The cotton has no memory. It's very cool to have on your body, but it has no memory, so it doesn't hold its shape. It stretches out of shape. Nylon is what gives the yarn memory and pulls it back into shape. So like when I stretch these have a stretch. When I pull them out and they go in, they memorize that they were this, and I can stretch them some this way too, and this way, and they go back to their original shape. If this was 100% cotton or silk or cashmere or bamboo, these would be pretty, and that's it. They wouldn't be worth wearing. They would be very nice to look at and pet and, and feel and all that stuff, but they wouldn't be any good to wear because they'd have no memory to them. Plus, superwash wool, and when you think about it, and I know people who live in Florida or in warm areas think wool, oh my God, that's got to be hot. It really isn't. Wool wicks the sweat away from your body, so therefore your feet aren't hot and sweaty. It also keeps your feet from stinking. You won't have the problem with stinky feet with wool socks like you do with other types of socks, store-bought socks. I generally knit my socks out of 75% merino superwash wool and 25% nylon. You can go to a really nice local privately owned yarn shop and get some beautiful, beautiful hand-dyed sock yarn that is just absolutely to die for. And, it's going to cost you at least $30 a skein or a hank, but it's going to make you a beautiful pair of socks that's just going to make you want to, go cuckoo bonkers over. But, anyhow, for just everyday good old basic knock around the house socks, you can't beat the durability of these, and they aren't hot. I wear them year round, and I don't have any problems with them. And I'm a flip-flop person, so, you know, for me to put on wool socks with tennis shoes during the summertime and not complain about it, yeah, there's not a problem. Also, for those who have problems with cold feet, possibly due to neuropathy from being diabetic, or I have peripheral neuropathy in my legs and feet from the lack of blood flow that I had for so long without knowing. And so I have problems with my feet being cold all the time, and I can put these socks on and my feet are I instantly get warmth. If I put store-bought socks on, and I've bought actually socks for diabetics because my feet were cold all the time, and I was basically having the same type of symptoms that a diabetic has with their feet. They did nothing for me. My feet were just cold and miserable, and when your feet, I don't know if you're like me, but when my feet are cold, I'm cold, or I can't sleep. You know, it's like I live in Florida. I have the AC cranking at 74 degrees. You know, I have a fan blowing on me because I'm warm, but my feet are cold. Go figure. So I have to have my socks on. They make it possible for me to be able to actually sleep. My last pair of socks that I just finished is this one. It's just a basic vanilla sock, same thing as the rest. It is Patton's Croy yarn as well. I did a pair of them, 2 skeins of the yarn makes a pair of socks with some leftovers. So that is my sockscapade, with the exception of one. And I want to share this yarn with you all because you don't see it in stores. I actually found it online. I had heard about it, but I never came across it. And it was like, you know, where does this yarn come from? And I stumbled onto it online, and I was like, holy cow, I really like this stuff. So it's called, there's a company called Southwest Trading Company, and they put out yarn. And you don't see it, I haven't seen it in any of the box stores, okay, like Hobby Lobby or Joann's or Michael's. I haven't seen it sitting around at Tuesday morning stores. I haven't found it in any of the stores, but I did find it online when I stumbled across I did a Google search for yarn sellers, and it's called Yarn Zone, Zone, and they sell this brand of yarn, and it's called Toefutsies. It comes in all kinds of colors that are so cool and neat. This one skein will make me a pair of socks, okay? It is 50% superwash wool, 25% soy silk, 22.5% cotton, and 2.5% chitin, and I think chitin is the proper pronunciation for it. Now, it's very fine fingering yarn. You could make beautiful lace shawls out of it. You can make anything lace out of it. It's very super fine. They recommend a size 2 needle, I believe it is, a US size 2, yes, and 8 stitches equals 1 inch on a US number 2 knitting needle. Anyhow, it's yarnzone.com. Their shipping fees are very minimal. They're probably better than anybody you'll ever find. They have some really good deals on buying quantities of, they have a pack that I think it's a 10 pack, 2 of each color. So you get 5 different colorways and 2 of each. So you get 10 skeins of yarn, and I think it's $30. Sometimes they'll put it on for like 20, which is, people, we're talking $3 a skein for sock yarn. And this stuff is great. I have knit numerous pairs of socks from it. The chitin, I did some research on it. Chitin is a part of the shell of a crab. Yeah, crab, the kind you eat, the kind that run around on the ocean floor and in the rivers. Yes. But that shell has a property in it that keeps you from having problems with stinky feet. Wool also has that property in it as well. I only had one skein of yarn that I bought with my order that smelt a little seafoody smelling. But when I watched, I was like, man, what is up with this? And I smelt all the balls, and it was like, none of them smelt but it. And I was like, that's that crab shell. That's what I'm smelling. But when I watched it, it went away. So, and it wasn't really, really bad. I have sometimes a persnickety nose, and, and I really, yeah, but it was gone. So these are really nice, and when you knit them up, they're nice and lightweight. Even though that they have the superwash wool in them, you would never know it by the feel of it or the weight of it. They're very lightweight, and I typically have some that's on the needles right now, and I'm starting one out of this skein of yarn, and I'm using a size 0, and it's dense on a size 0, but they're not heavy and they're soft. So, I would recommend it for anybody. So, if you want to take a look at it, they've got some really cool colors. And I got my package relatively quick. So, it's called Toefutsies yarn, and they're by Southwest Trading Company, and the website is called Yarn Zone, Zone. So give them a try if you want to. Toefutsies, also, there's a knitting book out there that is nothing but Toefutsies yarn, and they're all socks, and it's called Socks a la Carte. And it is just an incredible book. I bought it. I stumbled across it at Tuesday Morning Store, and I got it for like just pennies on the dollar. So that's why I bought it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to buy it. But they use nothing but this yarn, and it's a really nice book, and it has some really neat designs for sock knitting in there. So, if you come across it and you can get it for dirt cheap, buy it, if nothing else, just to look at it, because I enjoy looking through it. I haven't made any of the designs yet, but it did give me the ability to think outside of the box when it came to knitting socks, because they're big about using different color combinations. And just because um, a sock leg and cuff is knit predominantly one way doesn't mean that they all have to be done that way. It allows you to mix different patterns for the foot, sock patterns, with a different sock leg and cuff, and the pages are all cut independently, so you can mix and match. You can choose your foot look one way, and then you can flip through and say, oh, well, I like that leg. And then you can flip through some more and say, oh, well, I like that cuff on there. And you can see it visually on how it looks with the 3 different pieces together. So it's really cool, and it's a really, really nice book. It's very well put together. The photography on it is just absolutely stunning. The colors are stunning. You won't be sorry that you got it. So that's it for my socks. I have some more knitting. I'm working on a top, and I haven't decided whether I want it to be a top or whether I want it to be a cardigan. So that's on hold right now. It's on standby. I have the back of it almost completed, but I'm trying to decide now how I want to do the front of it, whether I want to continue and go over my shoulders and down the front, or do I want to make another piece separate and turn it into a top, a pullover top, instead of a cardigan. So I'm playing with that right now, and I'll show it eventually. The problem is lighting And I'm not sure y'all will be able to see it because it's in a dark royal blue um, yarn, but it's going to be pretty. Here's one that I'm just finishing up. Don't know. I'm going to try to go really, really slow. I have it on a hanger. I have my shoulder seams sewn up. This, I have to do my side seams. This is not done by a per se pattern. I watch a podcast that I came across a little over a year ago, and it's called Jay's Knit and Purl Jam. She's on YouTube. She's been on YouTube for several years now. She's a very, very wonderful lady out of Atlanta, Georgia, and I stumbled across her and I was intrigued. And I think most of all was she does a beautiful podcast. Oh, it's gorgeous. Very, very nicely done. And she's got a craft room, a knitting room, crochet, quilting room. This like a size 20 by 20 that she had built onto her house. This woman is awesome. And I think she just celebrated her 71st birthday recently. But anyhow, Miss J. I like my Miss J. If it had not been for her, I would have never, ever tried to even make what I just showed you. She does not use patterns. She uses stitch books. And she goes through her stitch pattern books and she finds a pattern stitch that she likes. You know, feather and fan, cables and lace, cat's paws, cables, just cables. And she does everything from scratch. She makes up her own stuff. And I am not a tiny lady by any stretch of the imagination. I don't have curves. I have lumps and bumps, and I'm fluffy. No, I'm the kind of woman that Picasso painted. I'm not Twiggy by any stretch of the imagination, nor Bo Derek. So I don't do couture fitting things. I wished I could, but I can't. So Miss J is the same way, and she teaches you how to do your measurements and get your numbers and how to put them together and how to do what I just showed you I did. And she keeps it super simple. She takes all the scariness out of knitting a top or a cardigan or a sweater or a shawl. And she's got some beautiful shawls that she's done, that she's designed them all her own. She's just went through and found a pretty lace pattern that she has to it, and she sits down and does the numbers and knits up samples and stuff, and she walks you through it and holds your hand, and it's wonderful. I think for most people, they would really enjoy her podcast. So give her a try. It's J apostrophe S, Knit and Purl Jam. And she does crochet, she does knit, she knits, she crochets. She has a crochet podcast as well as her knit podcast, but she doesn't combine the two together. She keeps them separate. She also does some accessorizing with stick pins that she makes, or little bracelets, or just pretty little scarves out of material matching fabric that matches a color in the garment that she knit. So very, very talented lady, and she has a very soothing voice, and she makes me smile, and she has a calming effect on me, which is really nice. And I would give anything if one day I could just sit down and meet her face to face and spend a couple hours knitting with her and having a glass of iced lemonade, fresh squeezed lemonade, and just talk and knit. And she just draws you to her. She's just good people. So give a look for her. Check her out. She may have something in there that interests you. Nothing is too hard, and if it's something that's not for a beginner knitter, she will tell you. She'll say, if you're just starting out, this isn't for you, but I can tell you which one of my episodes to go to look at that you will be comfortable being able to do. And I appreciate that in somebody. She's a great teacher, and she does great work. And I have one little guy left that I want to show you. I spoke of my great grandson Jaden earlier, and about his little socks that I made for him that he never got. God bless his heart. But he went to the store with his mama and his grandma, and he thought he was coming home with a little dinosaur toy, and of course it didn't come home with him because that just wasn't in the budget right then. So when he discovered it, I happened to be there at the house that day, and he just cried the biggest crocodile tears. So he was just heartbroken. So I came home and I thought, I'll knit him a dinosaur. Surely there's got to be a dinosaur toy somewhere on the internet for free. And I found one, and it was just a little guy, and he looked kind of like, he made me think that this little dragon was born in Japan, because he just had the shape of his eyes and his mouth just reminded me of a little Japanese. So he kind of looked angry, but I thought, okay, I'll do this. I can whip this up for Jaden. And I did. And I've really never knit toys before, so this was a first for me. And I made him blue like the pattern, because I had some Red Heart Super Saver, good old non-destructible yarn. It'll last through a nuclear holocaust. Along with the cockroaches. That's bad. But anyhow, I did him out of Red Heart Super Saver, the good old basic tough old yarn. And then I did his little bumps, ridges that goes down his back and down his tail out of some green. And I embroidered on his eyes and his little mouth. And I couldn't wait to take it over there to him. It wasn't very big, but it was just something he could drag around in his hand. And I said, do you know what it is? And he says, He said, he looks mean. He looks like he's mad. And I got so tickled. And I said, well, it's a dinosaur. I said, you said you wanted a dinosaur. So Granny went home and knitted you a dinosaur. And he says, I'm going to go put him in my toy box now. And he did. But he said it didn't look like a dinosaur to him. Out of the mouth of 3-year-olds, what can I say? So anyhow, I came across this little pattern. If you get onto Ravelry, to me, Ravelry and Facebook are those rabbit holes that you start in and you think, I'll just look in here for a minute, and you're in there 3 hours later. Well, that was me. So I got on Ravelry, and I found this guy. And I think its name is called The Loving Monster. All right. It's the size of my hand. Okay. It took me a couple hours to knit this crazy little thing. It wasn't that it was hard. It's just, what can I say? But anyhow, I did a little bit of modifications. Like I saved the hat to its head, because otherwise it wasn't going to stay on. And, some of these little stuff is tedious. It's just, it takes long. You look at it, you think, that'd take that time to do. I can make that in 15 minutes. Wrong. This is a knitted hat worth of time for me. But anyhow, I thought it was really cute. And so it just kind of hangs out in my knitting basket, and I haven't given him a name yet, but I will one day. So that's my little loving monster, and it can be found on Ravelry, and it's a free pattern, and I don't remember who it's by. I'm sorry. And then one of my little things that I picked up to put in my room with me, at my chair where I sit and knit in my bedroom, is my little wooden bird. And I'm a fan of Dollar General and Family Dollar and Dollar Tree. So I found a bird for $1 at Dollar General store, and I thought, I'm going to bring that home and set it on my little table beside me. And then I have this cute little kitten. I actually have a kitty cat, and she's a blue Russian, so she's gray, and her name is Chloe. But when I was in the hospital and had my bypass surgery, one of my grandchildren, he was, well, I had it in 2013, and he's now 15, 5 years later. So he was 10 at the time. And when he came to the hospital to visit me after I got out of ICU, he brought this to me. He saw it and he thought of my kitty cat, Granny's kitty cat, Miss Chloe. So he bought this for me. So Bird and Kitty sit on the table by my knitting light and my plant. And they sit and knit with me. And then my real kitty, Miss Chloe, when she looks at me and she has that look in her eye of like, really, you're knitting still? You've got that stuff in your lap again? And she kind of was like, okay, get it out of the way because I'm coming to take up your lap space. And she does for a while, and she'll sit there and then she'll go away. But yeah, life is fun. What can I say, right? Keep it simple. So anyhow, everybody, thank you for watching my video. If you like it, give it a thumbs up, please. If you'd like to see more of them, hit the subscribe button and you'll get a little notification of when I do a video again. I don't do them on a regular basis. If you'd like for me to, just let me know and I'll see what I can do. It's going to really depend upon whether I have an audience or not as to whether I will continue to do it and do it on a more frequent basis. I don't want to bore anybody, but I don't want this to become like a job. I don't work anymore since my heart surgery, and I don't want to feel obligated. It's kind of like knitting. Somebody says, oh, you should sell your stuff, and I have knitted a couple pieces for money in the past, and I found that when I do that, I feel like I'm on a deadline and that I'm obligated, and it takes the enjoyment away from what I'm doing. And I would like for my podcast to be enjoyable for me as well as the viewer. So, I hope that you can understand where I'm coming from. Like I said in the beginning, I don't have editing equipment. I've got a $100 tablet here that I'm, recording this off of. I don't edit. I don't correct boo-boos. I don't add in stuff. I don't put things in underneath the podcast of links and things. I don't know how to do that on my tablet. I don't even know if my tablet has that capability. So I hope you understand. And like I said, if you do enjoy them, check back now and then and see if I've added anything on. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the comments section, and I will do my best to answer any of your questions that you may have. I enjoy feedback, and I enjoy talking with other people. I don't get out much since my surgeries, and but I my knitting and my cat are pretty much my life, and maybe going to the grocery store every couple weeks, or any medical appointments. So I really do enjoy having somebody to talk to. So, thank you. I appreciate everything, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to view this. If there's anything that you'd like to know about, if I have any type of knowledge about it, whether it's knitting, heck, whether it's anything, if I have any knowledge, I'll share with you what I know. I'll be happy to share with you. If I don't know, I will be the first one to say, I'm sorry, I don't know, but maybe I can point you in a direction where you can get the information from. I mean, that's what people are there to do, right? So thank you, one and all. I hope everybody has a wonderful week. October is coming up, and I am going to be the big 6-0 on October the 9th. If I haven't said it before, And I don't think I did because this is take 2 podcast. The first one I was missing in. You could hear me, but I wasn't there on the screen. My name is Deborah. My friends call me Deb or Debbie. And it's been a pleasure. And good night. And so long for now. And we'll see you again soon from sunny Florida. You all have a wonderful week. Have a smile, share a smile, and you'll get a smile back at you. Have a wonderful time. Thank you, and goodbye.